Video number 2, coming at you. Not creative at all, I know. Raise your hand if you believe God is real. Now, raise your hand if you do much to follow up on this belief. That probably took a lot of you out, but that's okay. Faith isn't easy. If faith was easy, it wouldn't be faith. It would be doing laundry or walking the dog or running for president, apparently. And I'm here to tell you, it doesn't have to stop at hoping all this stuff is real and crossing your fingers when or if you pray. No, God wants to reveal himself to you. Not necessarily in shining glory and splendor, but something maybe more discreet. And he will do it if you ask. To back up this claim, I would like to refer to the story of Gideon in the Old Testament. This is one of my new favorite stories and is full of good stuff. For the sake of time, I will do some paraphrasing along with the direct reading. We begin in Judges chapter 6. I suggest you read it for yourself for best comprehension. But first, a little setting. The time leading up to this story, the Israelites were constantly going back and forth with God. They'd listen to him for a while and then start to ignore his commands and things would go badly. Then they'd be like, "God, help us," and he would. And then when stuff settled down, they'd go back to doing their own agenda and things would go very poorly for them. This is pretty much the whole pattern and theme of the Old Testament. Anyways, this story takes place at one of those low points. For a combination of reasons, the Israelites had been beat down and dominated by a tribe of people called the Midianites. The Midianites were extremely harsh on Israel, so they called out to God for help. And God sent an angel to a young man named Gideon. Gideon lived in a time where he has never witnessed any of God's miracles and life was just not great for them. He had no concept of God other than what he had been taught growing up. Sound familiar? This is their conversation. When the angel of the Lord appeared to Gideon, he said, "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." "But sir," Gideon replied, "if the Lord is with us, why has all this happened to us? Where are all his wonders that our fathers told us about when they said, 'Did not the Lord bring us up out of Egypt?' But now the Lord has abandoned us and put us into the hand of Midian." The Lord turned to him and said, "Go in the strength you have and save Israel out of Midian's hand. Am I not sending you?" "But Lord," Gideon asked, "how can I save Israel? My clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least in my family." The Lord answered, "I will be with you, and you will strike down all the Midianites together." Gideon is even asking, "Who am I that you would ask me to do this?" And God is pretty much saying, "It doesn't matter who you are, I've got your back." Going on with the story, Gideon asks if he can make a sacrifice or an offering to God in the angel's presence. So the angel waited. Gideon sets the offering on a rock, and then the angel touches the meat portion, and fire bursts out of the rock and burns it all up, and then the angel just disappears. Whoa. Seeing something like that would be enough to convince just about anybody, wouldn't you think? Not Gideon. Fast forwarding through the story a bit, Gideon performs one small task God asked of him, and comes out of it alive and well, when he could have very easily been executed. Then God tells Gideon it's time to round up an army and go fight the Midianites, who powerfully outnumber them. Despite having an angel physically appear to him and make a rock catch on fire out of nothing, Gideon was still afraid. So he asked God for a sign that he was still with him. Gideon said to God, "If you will save Israel by my hand as you have promised, look, I will place a wool fleece on the threshing floor. If there is dew only on the fleece and all the ground is dry, then I will know that you will save Israel by my hand, as you said." And that is exactly what happened. Gideon rose early the next day, he squeezed the fleece and wrung out the dew, a bowl full of water. Then Gideon said to God, "Do not be angry with me, let me just make one more request. Allow me one more test with the fleece. This time, make the fleece dry and the ground covered with dew. That night God did so. Only the fleece was dry, all the ground was covered with dew. Gideon asked for a sign, and God gave it to him. Then Gideon turns back around and says, just in case that was a coincidence, one more sign please. And God still complies. How neat is that? God showed himself to Gideon through what it took for him to be convinced in his own mind. Nothing incredible or mind-blowing, nor something that can't be rationalized away, but enough to get his point across. The story goes on, and God actually reassures Gideon a technically fourth time, but this is far enough for the purpose of this video. My whole point is here, you don't have to go on guessing if God's real or if he wants to be involved in your life. He does, and as was just displayed, he's willing to show you. And you may say, well, I'm not Gideon, so God might not show himself to me. Wrong. To that I say, the New Testament is riddled with the writer saying, God does not show favorites. So, if he doesn't show favorites, what he is willing to do for one person, he will do for any. And that includes you. Obviously, no two situations will be identical. There's no formula for it. And there are different timings to consider, varying levels of faith, and maybe certain sins in your life that are separating you from God's purpose or the answering of your prayers, which will be made known to you if you pray about it. So give it a shot. I can't tell you what to pray for or what sign to look for, but if you earnestly pray for a sign, God will acknowledge it, and maybe even give you a little hint in your prayers of what to pray for. This isn't just a Bible story, folks. This has happened to me several times over the past year or so. And let me tell you, it may be something small and subtle, but it is an incredible feeling when you realize what just happened. So go ahead, ask God to draw near to you, get those baby steps out of the way, and then you will really start to see what God wants to do with your life. And as always, there's no time to waste. Thank you for watching, and God bless.